Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Teaching Tips Tuesday with me, Alex Fabrega. Today we have Tom Vankoevering from the Chicago Public School System. He's been an O&M for 27 years. Thank you so much for being on with us today, Tom.
Thank you for having me, Alex. Looking forward
to
it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I wanted to talk to you today about something that I see happening a lot, and that is people who are unfamiliar with visual impairments being painfully awkward in the hallway during school. They want to interact with the person with a visual impairment, but they just don't know how to. So I want to run through a couple scenarios and get your opinion on it. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, so the very first one, this is one that I run into a lot as a TVI O&M in the field, is that I'm with a student in the hallway and another adult wants to come interact with us and they do not know how to start that interaction. What would you say to do?
Yeah, I think it's really important that you introduce yourself, say your name, so that the student can identify your voice with your name so they know who they're interacting with. I think it's really important that you talk to both the student and the adult, whether it's a TVI or an aide. Just make sure that you're including the student in the conversation and not having a conversation with the adult either about the student or not, but just leaving them out. I think it's just very important that you include them in the conversation.
Absolutely. It makes my skin crawl when an adult wants to have a conversation with me about a kid that's right there. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so make yourself known, clearly who you are, and just kind of get past that awkwardness. All right, sounds good. Here's my next scenario. So say you're the same classroom teacher, you're looking in the hallway, you notice a student is traveling with a cane and there's an unfamiliar obstacle ahead of them in the hall, maybe like a sign-up table that isn't normally there. I've seen people and just kind of get lost in their brain about what they should do. So what do you think?
I think it depends on whether or not you're familiar with the student. If you're familiar with the student's skills and know that they have good cane skills, you might just observe and watch them find the table and go around it on their own. If you're not familiar with their skills, you might say something like, to the student's name, hey, Johnny, there's a table coming up in front of you in 5 feet. You might have to go around it by going to your left. Or just identifying the obstacle for the student and allowing them to be aware that it's there.
Do you have any absolutely do not do's for this situation?
I think touching a student, walking up and touching a student, moving a student, pulling them out of the way or pulling them to a better route, or actually, I don't appreciate it when someone tries to move the obstacle out of the way, because the student just hears, like you were saying, a table. They hear a table moving or chairs moving. They really don't know what's going on in the hallway. What's the scenario? Is somebody moving more chairs in front of them? Are they moving them out of their way? Does anybody recognize that they're in the hallway walking? So I think moving things is really not something you want to do. You'd rather just verbally tell them that there's going to be something in their way, like an obstacle.
So definitely don't move the object, because that doesn't make any sense to the student, and definitely do not move the student.
Yeah, to be touched, just like we don't like to be touched or steered or moved. It's not a good thing.
There's definitely a lot of people with good intentions, and we don't want to say anything bad about that, but think a little bit more. What would you want in that case? All right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, my last scenario, this is one I see a lot as well. What if you are that same classroom teacher in the hallway, you see a student traveling, and you want to walk up and have a conversation with them? Not just talk to them and an adult maybe, but talk to them on their own when they're traveling in a hallway.
I think you have to understand that a student who's a cane traveler walking in the hallway is actually working. So we think of students working in the classroom, and then when they're hallway, it's like free time to talk with your friends. But for someone who's blind or severely visually impaired, when they're walking in the hallway by themselves, they're really working. They're working on listening to sounds. They have a route in mind that they're trying to follow. They're listening for hallways. They're listening for classrooms, bathrooms, different auditory landmarks, or maybe even physical landmarks that they're checking for. And so if you have a conversation with them, especially with the younger children, it kind of throws them off their route and they get confused. So I would say having a conversation with a younger student in the hallway, I would say probably frowned on, just because it interrupts their process of working, their thought process while they're traveling.
Okay. I mean, to any of our viewers, if you're in a school setting, I would encourage you to close your eyes in a hallway of a middle school or a high school during that transition time. It is a wild cacophony of stimuli going on.
There's a lot of going on, and kids really do need to concentrate and pay attention to them. And once you talk to them, if you have a conversation with them, it's oftentimes hard for them to reorientate themselves. They're confused, and then they're kind of lost and need some assistance.
Definitely when they're younger, like you said.
Definitely when they're younger. High school kids can handle multi-processing, and they can kind of dictate when they want to have a conversation or when they don't. They can avoid the situation, or they can stop and have the thought process of asking the person they're having a conversation with, like, I got confused. Wait a minute. Is this where I am and I'm facing this way? And then they can reorientate themselves and continue on their way. But for someone young, no, they're not able to do that. No.
Okay. Well, it sounds like in summation, what we kind of figured out is that it's always good to announce who you are when you're making that first contact, and then just to try and put yourself in that student's shoes and think about how you're communicating with them will impact their travel.
Right. And I think you can also, too, remember that you don't always have to say something to them. It is okay to let someone who is blind or severely visually impaired pass by you in the hallway without having any type of communication. That's not disrespectful. That's just life. So you don't engage in a conversation with them or any kind of interaction.
All right. My final question for you today, Tom. What is your favorite part of your job as an O&M?
Oh, wow. I really do enjoy it. I would say what I enjoy most about teaching orientation mobility is getting to know kids. We do have the opportunity to have kids sometimes from kindergarten all the way through high school. So we do spend a lot of one-on-one time with kids. We get to know what they like, what they don't like. We get to know what they like to do at home. We get to know their families. We get to know where their families go on vacations. I think you just get to know the whole person.
Absolutely. All right, Tom. Well, thank you so much for coming on Teaching Tips Tuesday today with me.
Thank you for having me. It's fun. Hopefully it was helpful.
I very much believe it will be. If anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and we will try to get an answer for you, and we will see you next week on Teaching Tips Tuesday. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.